Picture a lion. It just took down a wildebeest. Does it simmer the meat in a court bouillon? Does it season to taste? No, it just eats it, face first, organs and all. Raw, warm, still twitching a little raw. Now picture a human trying that. Within 6 hours, you don't have a proud apex predator, you have a person on a toilet, questioning every decision that led them to this moment, Googling, is raw wildebeest a war crime?
Here's the mystery. Almost every other animal on Earth can eat its food exactly as it finds it. Grass, bugs, carcasses, bark, doesn't matter. Nature handed them a fully functional mouth-to-gut appliance and said, good luck. But humans got the one body in the entire animal kingdom that comes with a mandatory some assembly required sticker. We can't eat rice, wheat, most beans, or a solid 90% of meat without cooking it, soaking it, fermenting it, or performing some kind of kitchen ritual first. So why would evolution, a process famous for being ruthlessly efficient, build the one animal that can't just eat the thing in front of it? Turns out it's a surprisingly savage story of toxins, shrinking jaws, and one very unfortunate broken gene.
Here's the deal. Evolution struck with us, and it was a genuinely brutal negotiation. Digestive tissue is expensive. A gut that can break down raw, fibrous, toxin-laced food, like the guts gorillas have, needs to be enormous. And it burns a huge amount of energy just sitting there fermenting leaves all day. Gorillas spend nearly their entire waking life chewing because raw plant matter is nutritionally stingy and their gut has to work overtime to extract anything from it. Human ancestors made a different bet. This is called the expensive tissue hypothesis, and the trade was simple. Shrink the gut, grow the brain. Brains are metabolically ravenous. Ours burns about 20% of our total daily energy, despite being 2% of our body weight. That energy had to come from somewhere, and somewhere was our intestines. Compared to other apes, human guts are noticeably smaller relative to body size.
The problem is, a smaller gut can't extract enough calories from raw, tough, fibrous food. You cannot run a 20% of your energy budget brain on raw yams chewed with a dinky little primate gut. So something else had to pick up the slack. That something was fire. Cooking is essentially pre-digestion. It gelatinizes starches, denatures proteins, and breaks down plant cell walls before the food even reaches your mouth, meaning your body spends far less energy extracting the calories itself. Studies literally show mice fed cooked meat gain more weight than mice fed the same raw meat, same calorie for calorie, because raw food costs more energy to process. We didn't get a weak gut by accident. We traded our gut for a brain, and cooking fire became a kind of external stomach, doing digestive work outside the body instead of inside it. While the gut was shrinking, the jaw was having its own quiet crisis. Compare your jaw muscles to a chimpanzee's. Chimps have thick, powerful masticatory muscles anchored to a bony ridge on top of the skull, because chewing raw plants and tough fibrous stems all day is basically a full-time strength training regimen. Humans lost that ridge. Our jaw muscles are comparatively pathetic. Part of this comes down to a single mutated gene, MYH16, which in other primates codes for a protein that builds those massive jaw muscles. In humans, that gene got broken roughly 2 to 2.4 million years ago, and the timing lines up suspiciously well with early tool use and food processing. Once our ancestors were pounding, slicing, and eventually cooking food, brute jaw strength stopped being a survival requirement. Weaker jaws that once would have been a death sentence became irrelevant because the chewing was now happening on a rock or over a fire before it ever reached your teeth.
This is the evolutionary equivalent of getting really into online banking and then forgetting how to do long division. The tool became a permanent crutch, and the body quietly deleted the ability it replaced. Here's something people don't appreciate enough.
Plants do not want to be eaten. A plant can't run away, so instead it evolved chemical warfare. Raw kidney beans contain a toxin called phytoheme agglutinin. As few as 4 or 5 raw beans can cause violent vomiting and diarrhea. Cooking destroys it almost completely. Raw cassava, a staple food for hundreds of millions of people, contains cyanogenic glycosides that release actual cyanide when digested, which is why it's traditionally soaked, fermented, and cooked for days before eating, a process nobody stumbles into by accident. That's generations of trial, error, and presumably some very unlucky ancestors. Grains and legumes are loaded with lectins and phytates, which bind to minerals like iron and zinc and drag them out of your body ungrazed, or physically irritate your gut lining. Soaking, sprouting, fermenting, and cooking neutralize most of this. So a big chunk of human food preparation isn't really about taste. It's a centuries-long chemistry experiment in defusing plant landmines before they defuse us. This next one is just embarrassing. Almost every mammal on Earth can manufacture its own vitamin C internally from glucose using an enzyme pathway ending in a gene called GULO. Dogs make their own, goats make their own, even most rodents make their own. Humans cannot. Somewhere in our primate ancestry, a mutation broke the GULO gene, and it never got fixed because our ancestors were eating so much vitamin C-rich fruit that nobody needed the internal factory anymore. Evolution doesn't maintain machinery you're not using, so the gene degraded into what's called a pseudogene, a broken, useless leftover, like a light switch wired to nothing. This is fine as long as you have reliable access to fresh produce. It becomes catastrophic the moment you don't, which is exactly what happened to sailors on long ocean voyages with no fruit for months, resulting in scurvy, one of history's most gruesome and preventable diseases. All because our ancestors got lazy about a metabolic pathway a few million years ago and stuck the rest of us with the bill. Put it all together, and the picture is almost funny in its irony. A gorilla has a massive colon built for fermenting raw fiber for hours. A human's colon, relative to body size, is dramatically smaller because we outsource the fermentation and breakdown to fire and processing long before food reaches our intestines. Our stomach acid is actually unusually strong for a primate, likely an adaptation to kill off the extra bacteria and pathogens that come with eating meat, including meat that's been sitting around a while or wasn't cooked quite enough. Even that is a compensation for the risks of a diet fire made possible. Every part of the human digestive system reads like a species that outsourced its survival to technology so thoroughly that the technology became load-bearing. Take away the fire, the knives, the fermentation jars, and the cooking pots, and the modern human body genuinely cannot survive very long on food in its natural state. So back to that lion tearing into its wildebeest, completely unbothered. The lion isn't primitive, and we're not advanced for needing a stove. We just made a different trade eons ago. We gave up the giant fermentation vat gut. We gave up the sledgehammer jaw muscles. We even gave up making our own vitamin C. We even gave up the ability to safely eat a huge percentage of the food on the planet without treating it like a bomb disposal job first. In exchange, we got a brain big enough to figure out fire, chemistry, agriculture, and eventually the elaborate act of soaking a bean for 12 hours just so it doesn't attack us from the inside. So next time you're cooking dinner, remember, you're not just making a meal. You're running the exact same external digestion hack your ancestors invented a million years ago because your actual body gave up on being able to do it alone. The lion doesn't need a recipe. You do. That's not a design flaw. That's the whole deal we signed.